husband and I have been debt-free for well over a decade, but if we had to start all the way over again, paying off that debt, we would do things a bit differently. Going through that process taught us a lot about what actually works and what doesn't, about what makes you feel burnt out and what keeps you motivated and pressing on toward the goal when it feels like you're making no progress. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would start paying off my debt, practically, realistically, and biblically. I'm Sarah, and this is It's All His. If you're serious about becoming debt-free and you want to honor God with your money along the way, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We talk about biblical stewardship, money-saving tips, debt payoff methods, all the good things that have to do with biblical money management. The very first thing that you need to do if you are serious about paying off your debt is you need to know exactly what the damage is. You need to be brutally honest with yourself and look at everything. Now, I realize this is not an easy step. You have to face that financial reality if you're really going to make a change. You've got to know where you actually stand. It can't be this rough idea of, I think I owe about this much over here, and I think I owe about this much over there. No, we need to know exactly what you owe. I'm talking actual balances, interest rates, payment amounts, payment due dates. All of the nitty-gritty details need to be on the page, on the screen. You need to be looking at the statements and the records and the bills. You need to know the complete and total, albeit sometimes a little scary, picture of where you stand when it comes to your debt. This is a non-negotiable first step, and it's important because reality matters. We need to face the reality head on because you can't change what you're not willing to confront. If you can do this step, you will know that you are serious about really tackling that debt once and for all. It is going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. It was for us, but it is vitally important that this is where you start. I made a video about facing your financial reality that goes into those details a little bit more specifically that I will link down in the description box if you would like a little more guidance on what this step looks like. Once you've seen where you stand and you know what you're facing, the next thing that I wish I would have done more faithfully is I would cover all of this in prayer. I was a brand new Christian when God set our feet on this path of biblical stewardship. We were convicted, and my husband and I were in agreement that something needed to change, and we needed to start thinking about money biblically. And I'll admit that as a baby Christian, my first default response wasn't what it is today, which is to just stop and pray. Before I look at every spreadsheet, before I start every budget, as I look at that really uncomfortable financial reality that I might be facing, I need to be taking all of that to the Lord in prayer. Consistent, specific, gratitude-filled, help-beseeching prayer. This is an important step for the Christian who wants to honor God with his money. Ask him for his wisdom. Ask him for his insight. Ask him for his help. I would pray something like, Lord, help me see where I've been careless. Help me be organized. Help me to fight against any shame or anger or fear, any of that might be cropping up in my heart as I begin to tackle this. Help me not to feel helpless or discouraged. Forgive me for the places that I have failed, where I've been sinning and that has reflected in my financial situation. Set my feet on a new path. These would be prayers that I would be praying regularly and consistently over the entire process, the small things and the big things. Now, we did pray, but we didn't pray as much as I wish we would have. And I know that had we would have been so much more in tune with what God was doing in the process. And we would have been seeking help from the one who can give the best help possible, instead of feeling the weight of having to do it ourselves. Building a budget is an important next step if you really want to pay off debt. You're not going to be able to do it without a plan, and that's exactly what a budget is. It is a plan for your money. It is where you get to take that money and boss it around and tell it what it's going to do. But one thing that I would change when it comes to making my budgets is I would make realistic budgets. Not for the finances that I wanted us to have or was hoping to have, but for the actual situations that we were in. As a one-income family at the time, with little kids, living in an expensive part of the country, I needed my budgets to be more realistic and less fanciful. I needed, again, to face that reality when it came to my budgeting so that I wouldn't be discouraged and upset when the budget didn't work like I was thinking it would. Because anyone who's done budgeting knows it takes a while to get those things just right. And even then, you still have to be ready to sort of pivot and make changes as needed. A budget isn't set in stone. It's a game plan that you adjust based on what's happening on the field. When we were paying off our debt, we went pretty scorched earth. We were very, very intense. We cut out everything that wasn't a need and didn't leave ourselves room for much fun. And what that ended up doing was later, after we had gotten out of debt, it made it harder for us to loosen the reins. It made it harder for me in particular to enjoy what God had given us, the blessings that he'd given us, because I was so used to that all or nothing, no nonsense, there is no flexibility, rigid type of budgeting, money managing mindset. If we were starting over again, I would still make cuts. I would still be weighing out those needs versus wants, and I'd still be trying to live on way less, but I would give us a little bit more breathing room than I did. I would make sure to include in every budget a small amount of fun money. How much that amount is depends on so many different situations, and it's definitely going to be small. Your fun should feel like you are still reining it in when it comes to your spending and trying to be grateful for what you have, and also trying to find ways to enjoy things and have fun without spending money. But you need something so that you're not constantly just saying no, 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 and feeling deprived and feeling like you can't enjoy God's good gifts. Even if they're small, they're still good. We see in 1 Timothy 6:17 that God provides us with all things richly to enjoy. And while we are trying to pay off debt and we want to stick to those budgets, and we do know that we need to make cuts to get out of this financial mess we found ourselves in, we're still allowed to have those little bits of joy along the way. So make sure if you are motivated and focused, that you allow yourself that little, pressure release valve, that you will let yourself have, even if it's, a coffee once a month or a candy bar, or just depends on you and your budget, but let yourself have something that's just joyful and fun and a treat. And then enjoy it to the glory of God with gratitude and contentment. Good biblical stewardship is about gratitude and joy. It is not just about sacrifice. There is one thing I would absolutely not change. As we were paying off debt, we, without fail, never stopped giving faithfully. Right off the top, even on months when money was really tight, we made sure that our very first bill was our giving to our local church. This was a non-negotiable. Giving like this anchored our hearts and reminded us in the reasons why we were doing what we were doing. It wasn't just about not having debt and not having payments. It was about honoring God and managing what he had given us better than we had been, but also reminding ourselves that he is our provider and it is all his money. So giving a little bit back to him for his purposes, for him to use, was a way for us to say, we're going to be obedient. We're going to trust that even though we're trying to pay off this debt and those dollars could go toward debt, we want to be faithful, and we're going to trust that you will take care of this goal that we're pursuing for your glory. And he did. So that is definitely one thing I would not change. If I was paying off debt today, that would still be, as it is even now that we don't have debt, that would still be our number one goal, our number one bill, giving faithfully right off the top back to the Lord, because it's all his anyway. If we were starting over paying off debt, we would still stick with the debt snowball method. I made a video about the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche, and I will also link that down in the description box. Definitely check that out if you're not sure about those two different methods, so you can find the one that's right for you. We use the debt snowball, and I would keep doing the debt snowball, even though it doesn't always make the most mathematical sense. And here's why. You get those quick wins. You get to see and celebrate progress along the way a little bit quicker when you focus on those smaller debts and knocking them out first. Paying off your smallest balance first helps to build momentum. You get to see those wins and those successes. But this time around, I would make sure to celebrate those things way more than we did before. If you have a lot of debt or you have a long slog ahead of you to get there, you can get discouraged and you can kind of lose that wind in your sails along the way. So having those little successes, paying those things off, and then making a fuss about it, celebrating it, being excited about the progress that you've made really helps to keep you motivated along the way. For us, we were so focused on the end goal, that finish line where there was no debt left, that we didn't enjoy the progress that happened as we went along, as the smaller debts got paid off, as we hit those milestones, as we saw the Lord provide and take care of those things and help us get out of debt faster. We didn't take the time to really just appreciate and enjoy that progress because our eyes were so fixed on, oh, but we're not there yet. We haven't arrived yet. But these were big deals, and they were things we should have been praising God for and being more excited about along the way. Things like paying off your smallest debt, or seeing that you were able to double your payment for 3 months in a row and you see that debt dropping down. Maybe getting to a halfway point, You get to pick and choose the milestones that you want to celebrate. And I would encourage you to make a lot of them and make a point of being excited about them, because it will keep you going and keep you focused. If you have a long way to go or you have a lot of debt, if you're only looking at the finish line, you're going to find yourself just feeling discouraged. It's natural. So try to look a little closer. Don't, look at the end goal. Be excited and pray and think about the end goal, but make some little goals along the way that you can be excited about too. I promise that will help keep you feeling motivated, especially on those days when the budgets are a little bit tighter, extra bills come up, and you're maybe not able to throw as much extra on the debt as you would like to. The other problem with being so laser focused on the end goal is you really miss seeing what God is doing along the way in the little faithfulnesses. When you see yourself making the cuts so that you can add extra to that first payment on that debt that you're tackling. When you see that progress, when you hit those goals, those are opportunities to see how God is working on you. Because remember, the goal isn't just zero debt balances. It's how are you going to be a faithful steward? How are you going to trust that God is going to use this process that he's put you on to sanctify you, to grow you more in Christ likeness, to strengthen your faith, to help you be more generous or grateful? There's a lot of work God is doing in the messy middle process of trying to get to that finish line of paying off debt. And if you're just so focused on the end goal, you're going to miss all the blessings that come from the time that you're struggling. And the struggle is easier when you are doing it with God and watching him work on you and seeing him answer those specific prayers we talked about praying earlier, rather than just kind of pulling yourself out from the middle of the mess and just putting your eyes on the end. There's so much more that can be learned in the process. And I know, looking back, I wish I would have spent more time just being in the process and seeing God work. I definitely did along the way, but again, I was a new Christian and I just wasn't thinking along those lines. I was definitely more focused on the numbers and the dollars and cents than on what God was trying to do in my heart, as I wish I would have been now looking back. When we do this, we can also take time to praise God and thank him for what he's teaching us in the process, for growing us in gratitude and contentment, helping us stop fearing man or caring what people think about how we spend our money or what we have. There's so much good fruit and growth that happens in this biblically focused debt payoff process that it's just so much fun to see God doing that along the way. One thing we didn't do that I really wish we would have done is have some sort of a visual tracker for our progress. I've seen so many cool ones since on social media, and I really would have loved to have had something on our pantry door or fridge or somewhere, even in our budget binder, just to see the progress. Some sort of a chart, or maybe you're coloring in little boxes or something like that, so that you can have a visual look at how well you're doing. I feel like that would have been so much more motivating and really fun to just see how that changed over time. That would have helped us with the celebrating small milestones and victories along the way. I have created a completely free debt tracker for you, linked down in the description box. If you want to click on that, I will send you one of those, and hopefully you'll be able to do what we didn't do and be motivated by seeing that progress along the way. The next thing I definitely would do differently if I was starting over paying off debt today is I would talk about it with more people sooner. I had my husband, and obviously we were discussing these things. We were speaking to our children in age-appropriate ways about budgeting and the financial changes that we were making. And we had a couple of friends who were very on board with the same types of goals that were encouraging to us. But in hindsight, I would have let way more people into what we were doing. People at our church, friends and family, even those who weren't believers. When we first started, I'll admit, we were a little embarrassed. We didn't want to talk about our money goals or our debt. We were doing a big thing in our lives, but it wasn't what a lot of our friends and family were doing. And so we felt kind of odd. We were also new Christians, and that can also make you feel a little different when you're surrounded by a lot of unbelieving friends and family. But I think we could have really brought the Lord glory if we'd have just not worried what people thought and just told people, hey, God has saved us. God has shown us that the way we're handling our money is not honoring to him, and we are set on a new path. That means we're living on a budget. We're going to say no to some things that we used to say yes to. Your Christmas gifts are going to be a little less fancy, or maybe we're not buying for you anymore this year, or I don't know. But whatever is changing, here's the why. It's because of the Lord. It's because of us trying to honor him with what belongs to him. He's saved us, he's changed us, and he has changed the way we think about money. And telling more people that would have just been way more God glorifying and maybe a good witness to them. I don't know. But I do know that I wish I would have just opened up more and told people where we were at and what we were thinking and the why behind it. We could have also been asking for people to pray for us, encourage us, share their wisdom with us, people who have already been there and done that. We happened to be part of a wonderful local church that was very stewardship minded. And I wish I would have told some of the people there just really what we were doing, because I know they would have had a lot of wisdom to impart and a lot of encouragement and a lot of prayer along the way. So if you're paying off debt and you're feeling a little bit embarrassed, maybe you've looked at the numbers and you feel like you're in a mess and you really want to work on this silently behind the scenes so that you're not letting people know. And there is wisdom and discretion in what you tell depending on who it is. But I would just encourage you to find people who you trust and just let them know what you're doing. It will help you, first of all, to be able to tell them no when they say, hey, we're going to dinner, or hey, let's all take this vacation. They'll understand why, and they won't be offended if you explain that you've got these financial goals that you're trying to hit and the why behind it. But you'll also hopefully find people who will cheer you on, encourage you, and pray for you along the way if you're willing to just open up and share. I know it isn't easy to do, and you don't have to do it with everyone, but I would just encourage you to think of even one or two people who you can open up to and seek some help, some accountability, and some encouragement from, because I think it will really bless you and help you along the way if you have those cheerleaders supporting you. I wish we would have had more of them. I would also make sure to fill my social media feeds with content that encourages my goals and silence things that are going to tempt me to want to stick with my old money ways, even if it's just for a time. Make sure what you're taking in, whether it's audiobooks, devotionals, podcasts, YouTube channels, anything that you're taking in, find things that are going to cheer you on, encourage you, motivate you to want to stay on this path that God has you on. If I had to start all the way over again, paying off my debt, I would remind myself that it is not about perfection. It is about making progress, growing in the process, trusting God with all of it, and leaving those results to Him. We saw firsthand how He guided, provided, encouraged, helped us when things didn't go like we were planning, when wrenches got thrown in, when some of our budget meetings resulted in tears. Me, not my husband, but there were definitely some of those. We saw God working. I wish I would have looked back and seen it more. I wish I would have been more aware of all the work that He was doing. But if you're doing this to honor Him, He will help you. Be faithful with what you have. Pray consistently. Celebrate the little wins. Invite others in to encourage and cheer you on. Stay open to what God wants to do in your life, what He wants to teach you, and how He wants to shape you and grow you, because He definitely will use your stewardship in those ways. If this video encouraged you, click that like button, maybe share it with a friend. And I'll put a playlist right here for you to go into next so that you can keep growing in biblical stewardship. Remember that it's all His. Thanks for watching.